Considering the fact that historically most African countries were conquered and/or colonized by their European and sometimes North American counterparts, not to talk about the incursions of slavers from Asia as well, it is understandable that many would think that these countries may be far behind when it comes to their military strength. Bringing in the wealth and the millennia of technological advancement accrued abroad, you'd find that when we talk about the security of a nation, you'd say that yes, countries like the US, Russia, and China do lead the way when you talk about the strongest and most powerful armed forces in the world. That being said, that doesn't mean that these African countries are still as vulnerable as they may have been centuries ago. All countries need formidable military forces on land, in the air, and on the seas, and the nations in Africa are very well aware of this. As such, many of these countries invest heavily in their armed forces, and today we're going to look into the ones that would be the most formidable and most impervious to occupation today. Here are the 10 African countries that would be the most difficult to invade today. We begin our list by heading over to the Republic of Tunisia, the northernmost country in Africa. With a population of over 12 million people, it's important that they are able to defend their small country from those who may seek to dominate them in their home, especially after having to shirk off the French after gaining their independence from France on the 20th of March 1956. As such, it comes as no surprise that as of 2022, they have a defense budget of $1.18 billion, a budget that is among the most expensive in all of Africa. With that, they've been able to maintain an active personnel of about 48,000 and a power index score of 1.366. The Tunisian Armed Forces is ever-present, with about 90,000 troops and a further 60,000 reserve personnel that are ever ready for action, thereby meaning that their forces come in at 150,000 troops strong. This present force reminds us of the early days of the modern Tunisian army that was set up all the way back in 1831 by Al-Hussein ibn Mahmoud, the Bey of Tunisia, from 1824 to 1835. A defensive force, its primary role is to defend the nation from foreign aggression, enable the creation of a diplomatic counteroffensive, promote the participation of the UN, provide protection for Tunisians living abroad, and to take part in peacekeeping operations. For the next country on our list, we head over to Northeast Africa to take a look at how formidable the Republic of Sudan is. With a formidable military force of over 200,000 active personnel, it's clear to see the third largest country in Africa in terms of area is well patrolled and protected thanks to this bountiful manpower. As if that isn't impressive enough, they also have a decently sized arsenal of tanks along with a fully stocked fleet of aircrafts and attack helicopters. They're in possession of 12 marine patrol boats, 690 combat tanks, 38 attack aircrafts, 43 assault helicopters, and 46 fighter aircrafts. You can imagine that this arsenal is no joke because most of them were imported from countries like Russia, China, and Ukraine. The rest of it is then manufactured at home by the Military Industry Corporation, the state-run corporation of Sudan. Perhaps that's where the $2.5 billion defense budget went. After all, there is an ongoing civil war out there between several military factions in the country. You might think they might be easy pickings now, but you definitely don't want them to turn their weapons on you. Coming in at number 8, Libya is stacked with a well-equipped arsenal and an intimidating army. With 55 rocket launchers, 250 combat tanks, 7 attack helicopters, and 450 armored fighting vehicles, you can say that the current Libyan army should be able to handle themselves in a fight. Although the UAE routinely disobeyed UN regulations in order to provide these weapons during and after Colonel Gaddafi's time, Libya has been able to spend over $3.5 billion in 2022 to continue stacking up this formidable arsenal. We head over to the 24th largest country in the world, Angola. With a landmass twice the size of countries like France, it's understandable that the country's military forces would be well organized, and that's the case with this southern African country, with a military force of over 120,000 active members. Couple that with its estimated $1.06 billion defense budget that was set for 2022, you can see how heavily the country has decided to invest in its defense ever since the Angolan military forces were set up in October 1991, following the signing of the Bices Accords by the Angolan government and UNITA party. Since then, they've managed to develop one of the most efficient military forces in all of Africa. We head over to the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia to look at the 6th most formidable military forces in the continent. When you consider the more than 160,000 military personnel available to the country and the firepower score of 1.080, it is easily the most powerful military force in East Africa. Believe it or not, this is a far cry from the time they could boast about having 250,000 to 300,000 military personnel back in the days of the Ethiopian-Eritrean War in the year 2000. Now, it appears that the Ethiopian National Defense Force has 3,000 personnel in their air force and 135,000 military personnel in their ground forces as recently as 2012. And it would have been more if Ethiopia was not a landlocked country. Nonetheless, many would think twice before stomping into Ethiopia to look for a fight. We return to the north of Africa to take a look at the Moroccan army. Ranking as the 5th most powerful army in all of Africa, the 150,000 reserve military personnel and the 200,000 active military men and women ready for action tell us that invading Morocco will be a tasking mission to say the least. We haven't even brought up their 0.857 firepower rating, which must be due to the 249 aircraft, the 335 tanks, 500 armoured cars, and 517 self-propelled guns that the massive $6.17 billion 2022 military defence budget was able to procure for them. Aside from this, they have more than 100 military personnel that's being developed. As a prominent non-NATO ally of the US and a participant in the 5+5 initiative, along with countries like France, Italy, Spain, and Malta, the Moroccan army has been improved by a modernization program at the turn of the 21st century, hence the stacked arsenal. No doubt taking on Morocco will be a Herculean effort for anyone who has such plans. For those who know the Nigerians, them no say they no dey carry last. Alas, they do not take top spot on this list, but as the incursion of Islamist military organizations like Boko Haram shows, taking Nigeria is proving to be an arduous task. Sure, security is problematic in the north, but with a power index of 0.575, Nigeria has the 4th most powerful military force in Africa. This is thanks to its 223,000 active military personnel, and Nigeria definitely has the manpower to take on most. Thanks to the more than $5 billion allocated to the military defense in 2022, they've been able to procure weapons such as the more than 13,000 aircraft, which include fighter jets and transport aircraft, along with the nearly 6,000 tanks, almost 4,000 armored vehicles, and nearly 1,200 self-propelling rockets. No doubt they have earned their position on this list. We return to North Africa to take a look at the military forces in the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. With 130,000 active military personnel and 135,000 reserve military personnel, along with an aircraft fleet with 552 helicopters, trainer aircrafts, 9 special mission aircrafts, 22 dedicated attack aircrafts, and 103 fighter aircrafts, an armory that boasts more than 2,000 tanks, more than 6,000 armored vehicles, and a little more than 5,000 self-propelled artillery weapons, and the backing of a $9.7 billion military defense budget, which happens to be the largest in all of Africa in 2022, it's easy to understand why Algeria ranks 3rd in the list of countries that are most difficult to invade in Africa. From the north to the south, we head to South Africa so that we can take a look at the second most powerful military force on the African continent. Thanks to the 225 aircraft that can be found in its Air Force fleet, a fleet that consists of 91 helicopters, 22 transport aircraft, 88 training aircraft, 17 fighter aircraft, and 7 special mission aircraft, as well as the nearly 200 combat tanks, 565 armoured fighting vehicles, 43 self-propelled artillery pieces, 82 towered artillery pieces, and 50 rocket launchers, it's no wonder it has a power index score of 0.428. Let's not forget about its burgeoning naval force and the $2.9 billion military budget. South Africa is believed to have the strongest army in sub-Saharan Africa. And that is also thanks to the 72,000 active military members and the 15,000 reserve personnel that have signed up to defend the country from any invasion. Finally, we take a look at our number 1 pick, the Arabic Republic of Egypt, the nation with the most powerful military force in all of Africa. This must be thanks to the 214 armed helicopters and 465 combat planes found in their arsenal. Apparently, Egypt even has the 4th largest F-16 Fighting Falcon fighter fleet in the world, behind the US, Israel and Turkey, with 240 aircraft. Sounds like they're ready to go. As if that isn't daunting enough, it appears that Egypt's military personnel numbers at 685,000, among which about 310,000 are active, are raring to go. As you can imagine, this means that they would be harboring the strongest military force in Africa for some time to come. This brings our video to an end. Do you think any of these countries will ever surpass Egypt? Please let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Until next time, goodbye.